Welcome to the Case For. I'm Matt Campobasso, your host. Thanks for joining me today. So I'm going to jump right in. This topic is one that I have actually wrestled with quite a bit since I started this podcast. And it's a topic that has been something on my mind and something that I've struggled with for much of my adult life. Every time I've thought about recording this podcast, I've thought, oh, this other topic might be more interesting or more engaging, or I'd find something else to do entirely. Part of that is because this topic is personal. It's not theoretical. And part of it is because I figured a lot of men are going to hear this and quietly think, yeah, that's me too. And then they're going to change the subject in their minds. But I've decided it's a good time to have the conversation. And so today, I want to make the case for men saying, I'm lonely out loud. I do think that younger generations of boys and men are doing a better job with this stuff. They're a little bit more emotionally fluent, a little more open, maybe more comfortable sharing what they're feeling about certain things. But it is still painful for most men. It's still confusing and it's still wrapped in shame. And before I jump in, I want to be clear. I don't think that men have the market cornered on loneliness. I know that loneliness is something that a lot of humanity is feeling now more than ever because of technology and things like that. But today, I want to speak about loneliness and putting words to it for men because that's been true to my experience. I think that there's actually something that we can do about loneliness, but I'm not coming at this from the place of being an expert or a therapist or a sociologist. I'm bringing this episode to each of you as a man in his 40s with a career, a family, responsibilities, deadlines, people counting on me. I am a man who has had many seasons where from the outside, it probably looked like I was completely put together if you weren't paying close attention. But on the inside, I was emotionally withering. There were days where my calendar was full, but my life felt very empty. Days where I could be in a room full of people, colleagues, friends, even family, and still feel like I was standing behind soundproof glass. There have been nights where silence in the house has gotten so loud it felt like it was pressing against my ribs. Nights where I would scroll through my phone, searching for something I couldn't quite name. Nights where loneliness felt like a fog that I couldn't think my way out of. And if I'm being really honest and vulnerable, there were nights where that quiet turned into dark thoughts. Nights where I wondered if this was just how life was going to feel now. Men don't say I'm lonely. Men say, I'm fine. It's been a long week. I'm tired. I've just got a lot going on. I'll figure it out. We say everything except for the truth. So here's my opening statement. Loneliness is killing men, literally and figuratively, and silence is the accomplice. Today, I want to talk about the problem itself, how we got here, what it looks like, what it does to us, and then I want to talk about some potential solutions. Not a 10-step program, not an inspirational slogan, just some simple things that revolve around the practice of acknowledging that you're lonely. I don't want you to view acknowledging that you're lonely as a failure, but rather an act of honesty to yourself and to those people who care most about you. Then I'm going to talk about 5 practical ways that I think men can start to move in the direction from small, simple steps to some bigger, scarier ones. And most importantly, I want to try to normalize in one sentence men saying, I'm lonely. So let's get into it. So the problem is men tend to default towards being quiet. And a lot of that comes from us as men inheriting that practice without anyone ever sitting us down and saying it plainly. We absorbed a belief system that sounds like this. Real men don't talk about their feelings. Maybe nobody said those exact words to you. Maybe they did. But you probably saw the message lived out in your life through fathers that never talked about fear, grandfathers who never talked about regret, coaches who said, work harder instead of talk to me, mentors who taught us how to perform but not connect, frat brothers or college friends or roommates or teammates that taught us how to drink through our pain instead of name it, and friends who joked their way around grief rather than face it. Early on, men learn feelings equal weakness, showing vulnerability equals liability, and loneliness equals failure. So what do we do with that? We build emotional bunkers. We bury pain under productivity. We replace connection with distraction. Men turn loneliness into a secret identity that they carry like a second skin. And the wild thing about all of this is that actually works in the short term. You do get stuff done. You stay strong. You become the reliable one. You're the guy who never needs anything or anyone. But over time, and I speak from experience, that bunker that you build becomes a prison. And a lot of men have no idea how to get out. So if we step back and just tell the truth about what's happening, men are lonely, and most of them are not telling anyone. Some of the loneliest men are successful, busy, married, admired, surrounded by people, pillars in their community, leaders at work, devoted fathers. Loneliness doesn't necessarily look like isolation. At times, it looks like responsibility. At times, it looks like fatherhood or discipline and routine, and I've got this. You might look at a man and think, that guy's crushing it. Great job, good dad, solid marriage, active social life. And that same guy might go to bed every night feeling like nobody really knows him. Here's the kicker. Loneliness doesn't come from being alone. Loneliness comes from not being seen. You can be surrounded and starving. You can have friends and still feel unknown. You can have a partner and still feel emotionally solitary. Loneliness is the space between who you are and who you pretend to be. And for a lot of men, that space has become a canyon. But this isn't just a state of mind thing either. Loneliness doesn't just live in your head. It lives throughout your body. Research actually has found that chronic loneliness can impact your health in ways that are similar to smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. Long-term sleep deprivation, carrying chronic stress for years. It raises your risk of heart disease and stroke, depression, anxiety, addiction, early death, and suicide. You don't have to remember those facts. The bottom line is, your nervous system keeps the receipts, and it knows that you're not meant to go through life alone emotionally. So what do most men do with that? We don't say I'm lonely. We say, I just have a lot going on. I don't want to bother anybody. I'll figure it out. Men are literally getting sick from silence because silence sounds noble. It sounds tough. It seems responsible. I don't want to burden anyone. But saying I'm lonely out loud, that sounds like weakness. So we don't say it. We swallow it and we let it quietly corrode us from the inside. Here's the really tricky part. Most men don't feel loneliness as loneliness. You could ask somebody, hey, are you lonely? I know that's a weird question, but you could ask someone that and they might say no and authentically believe that they're being honest with you. Because we don't sit on the couch thinking, wow, I sure am lonely. It tends to manifest as irritability, restlessness, emotional numbness, overworking, overdrinking, binge watching, scrolling, too much time at the gym, withdrawing, anger, a short fuse, or just this vague feeling of emptiness. Again, we're not saying I'm lonely. We're saying, what's wrong with me? Why can't I connect? Why do I feel so flat and empty? Why am I mad all the time? Why do I feel like my life is happening around me and not with me? That last one is one that I have felt many times in my life. Loneliness in men often looks like anger or distraction or distance, not tears, not I miss you guys, not I need someone. And the people around us, our partners, our kids, our friends, they see the anger and the distraction and the shutdown. They don't see what lies beneath that, which is a man who's thinking, I'm lonely and I don't know how to fix it. So our friends, our family, our partner, they react to the behavior, the snapping, the zoning out, the shutting down, because that's what they see. And the loneliness goes even deeper underground. Every man that I know, myself included, carries some sort of what I'll call an emotional logjam within him. I want you to picture a river with a massive pile of logs jammed together. Nothing is really flowing, it's just stuck. And your loneliness, it sits at the front of that logjam, blocking everything else. Behind it, maybe shame, fear, guilt, unprocessed grief, disappointment, exhaustion, stress, or a lifetime of swallowed feelings. And because we never truly say I'm lonely, we never get to the rest. We don't get to that loss that wrecked us. We don't get to talk about the failures that we can't forgive ourselves for. We don't get to talk about how tired we are. We just push it all down. We just keep tightening that lid. Loneliness blocks the river. Naming it, actually saying, I've been lonely, is often the first thing that loosens that whole pile. And it won't fix everything overnight. You don't say it once and suddenly you're healed. But it does give all those other feelings somewhere to go. It opens a tiny channel in the dam. So that's why I think the solution in the simplest form really is men saying, I'm lonely out loud to themselves, to each other, to professionals that can help, and most importantly, to the people they love. That sentence is where the logjam starts to break. So we've talked about the problem, the silence that we've inherited, the way that loneliness hides within us, what it does to our bodies, how it jams everything else up. But now I want to pivot into something that is a bit more practical. Not theory, not shame, just 5 suggestions, 5 ways that men can start to push back against loneliness. Think of these as a ladder, but you don't have to climb all 5 rungs today, and you don't have to climb them in order. Even if one of these things lands for you, I think that's a win. And remember, the big picture here is simple. We're trying to move from I'm fine to I'm lonely in a way that feels possible, safe, and honest. So first, I want you to tell the truth to yourself. I think that's the smallest, most private step, and probably the most powerful. No audience, no social media post, no grand confession. Just you alone, by yourself, telling the truth. That might look like sitting in your car for a moment before you go inside and saying, I've been lonely, or writing in a journal or in your notes app, I feel disconnected. Maybe it's looking in the mirror while you're brushing your teeth and thinking, this isn't just stress, this is something beyond that. I'm lonely. I know it sounds simple, but a lot of men never even do that. We gaslight ourselves. We rebrand our loneliness as being busy. So step one, stop lying to yourself. You don't have to solve it yet. You just have to stop pretending that it's not there. If all you do after this episode is name it, privately and honestly, that is a real step, I promise. Step two is start with a micro connection. It's small, practical, it's not dramatic. Practice tiny moments of real connection in low-risk places. Maybe make eye contact with somebody who's serving you at a coffee shop and ask them, how's your day going? Maybe say more than fine when a coworker asks you how you are. You don't need to get into the whole thing, but you can just say, I'm pretty wiped out. It's been a weird time. Maybe you talk to another parent on the sidelines at a child's game instead of scrolling your phone the whole time. Check in with a neighbor. Send them a message. Say, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. You doing okay? These aren't deep confessions. You're not trauma dumping on the guy at the coffee shop, but they're repetitions. They remind your nervous system that you're part of a human world and not just a productivity machine. Loneliness thrives in total disconnection. Micro connections will break that up a little bit. You're gently telling your system, I'm still here, other people are still here. It's safe to be a person. Third, I want you to send one honest message. This one's a little bit scarier, but it's still pretty contained. Reach out to somebody that you already trust and just be 10% more honest with them. Not 100%. You don't need to dump your entire emotional journey on them. Just 10% more. Maybe that's a text that says, hey, I've been thinking about you, man. Life's been lonely lately. How are you? Or if you want to go a little bit further than that, say, hey, it's weird to say this out of nowhere, but I miss hanging out. Are you up for grabbing coffee soon? Or lastly, and probably most significant, hey, you're one of those people that I feel like I can be real with. It's been a tough time. I'd really love to catch up. The point here isn't to craft the perfect message. The point is to break secrecy. Let one person in on the truth that you've been carrying alone. You might be surprised with how many guys come back with, yeah, me too. And now without using the exact words, I'm lonely, you've actually said it and somebody heard you. Commit to a recurring space with other humans. This one's a little bit bigger. It requires time, little courage. You got to be deliberate. Put yourself in a recurring space where you are seeing the same people regularly. Men are terrible at this for the most part. We say things like, we should grab a beer or let's catch up soon. Or if you're like friends of mine, we make plans and then we cancel. And it never happens. So what I'm talking about is join a rec league, bowling, softball, basketball. Play in a weekly pickup game. Join a book club, a small group, a men's group at a church or a community center. Take a class. Join a dad group. Join a songwriting circle. I don't care, but find something that fits your personality and go do it. It's something that happens each week or every other week where your presence is noticed, and over time, people are going to start to know more about you than your job title. And it might be awkward at first. I'm not going to say that it won't. And you might not click immediately. You might even leave the first couple of times thinking, I don't know if these are my people. That's fine. But guess what? Humans bond over repeated low-pressure contact. Think about how many of your closest friendships formed just because you kept showing up in the same place over and over. Loneliness hates consistency. So show up anyway. You're giving future you a chance to have people around who already know a little bit of your story. So when you're finally ready to say, I'm lonely, it won't be so hard. This brings us to our last step. Say those words out loud to someone safe. This is the bravest one. It could be a close friend, a sibling, a partner, a therapist, a support group. And it can sound like, hey, I need to tell you something I haven't said out loud. I've been lonely. Or, hey, I love you and I feel really alone sometimes and I want to work on that. Maybe go see a therapist and say, I don't even know where to start, but I've been feeling alone for a long time and I'd love to get to the bottom of that. Saying those words in front of another human being, not perfectly or eloquently or bravely, just honestly, that's you drawing a line in the sand. That's the moment the secrecy ends. And secrecy is where loneliness grows its deepest roots. When you say I'm lonely out loud, you're doing two things at once. You're telling the truth about your present, and you're opening a door to a different future. That sentence is not the end of your strength. It's the beginning of your real strength, the kind that doesn't depend on pretending. So here's how I want to finish this. Loneliness, it's not a moral failing. It's not a flaw. It's not a verdict on your worth or your strength. It's a signal. It's a beacon. It's a flare in the night sky of your life that says, hey, you weren't built to carry all of this alone. Men break in isolation. Men rebuild in connection. And the doorway between those two realities is often a simple, terrifying sentence. I'm lonely. Saying I'm lonely out loud is not the moment you lose your strength. It's the moment your strength becomes honest. It's the moment that your armor cracks just enough for another person to be able to actually reach you. And if you're listening to this and you've been carrying loneliness like a secret identity, if you've been sitting in parking lots longer than you need to, brushing your teeth without being able to look yourself in the eye, or scrolling through your phone hoping somebody's going to read your mind and send you a message, please hear this. You are not the only man that feels this way. You're not broken. You're not failing at life. You're lonely. And you deserve connection. So start small if you have to. Admit it to yourself. Make a micro connection. Send an honest text. Find one recurring thing to do and show up to it consistently. Tell somebody that is safe, who cares about you, who wants to see you healthy and happy, the truth. Loneliness doesn't shrink when you ignore it. It shrinks when it's shared. Don't whisper your pain into the world. Hand it to someone who loves you or someone whose job it is to help you carry it. The bottom line is, you've got to let yourself be human. You don't have to be okay today. You just have to stop pretending. Men don't need to be fearless. Men need to be honest. And honest men say, I'm lonely, out loud, to someone, while there's still plenty of time to write a different chapter. This has been the case for men saying I'm lonely out loud. With me, Matt Campobasso. If this episode hit a nerve in a good way or a hard way, maybe send it to another man in your life. Not with a, you need this, but with a simple, hey, this made me think. I thought you might relate. And if you're the man who's lonely, I hope this is the nudge that you need to say it out loud to someone, even if that someone isn't me. You're not alone. You were never meant to be. I'll see you next time.